So my dissertation is about startup mergers and acquisitions. So for example, when Google buys out a startup or Facebook buys out Instagram and brings these new companies into their existing corporate ecosystem. And my research in particular looks at the mobility of people that are employed at startups and whether they move over to the larger firm that's buying them out. And if they don't, what are the reasons why they're not joining the new company, and what do they do afterwards? Do they start new ventures? Do they join a competitor firm, or do they do something else? So my research is trying to unpack the human capital element of these acquisitions and mergers.
And being an applied empiricist that I am, we are trained to always look for random variation in the real world. This is what we do. And so during one of our conversations with the tutor, he said, oh, there's this new thing that just developed recently. No one knew it was coming, and there's all this really interesting stuff that we think might come out of it. It's called Crispr. I'm like, so a light bulb goes off in my head, and I said, oh, I think we may have found something fascinating here. Tell me more about this Crispr. And Crispr, as we said, Crispr is this new gene technology, gene editing technology, I should say, that went from a discovery in the natural world, prior to 2012. In 2012, they realized, hey, we can actually program this to go find any gene that I'm looking for and cut it out. And then 6 months later, it was said, oh, and we can do this in mammals too. So we went from that period in late 2012, 2013 to today, where they used it to eliminate HIV in a mouse. I looked at the faculty member I was working with at the time, and I said, I think we found our shock. In most empirical research, the shock is basically something you can use to actually find out, is something causal? So in my case, I was interested in understanding when somebody gets a tool like this, a new innovation, a breakthrough, what happens to research? What do people in that field do? Do they continue on doing the same thing, or does the direction actually change? And so it's this whole conversation that was in my first year led to what is now going to be a full set of papers that build off of each other that is going to be my dissertation.
Getting to a dissertation topic is a journey, so rarely we land on a topic on the first try. So it's a very iterative process where we're going through ideas and testing them out. We would develop an idea for 2 weeks and do the literature review and also do some thinking around what empirical experiments can be run to better understand this phenomena. And then we would bring it to our advisor, who would then comment on these things. And most often, the answer will be, this is good, but not good enough. You could do better. And it could be frustrating, but at the same time, we're kind of pushing our limits as a researcher, as someone who's trying to understand and clarify this really complex set of issues.
It's not difficult to write a paper, and it's not necessarily difficult to find an idea, but it's difficult to bring it all together. So there are plenty of times where I've come up with what I thought was a really awesome question. The literature said nothing on it. I had a great time thinking about through the theory and what it might mean. And then I couldn't find any kind of data that would allow me to actually, test the theory. So all it was, a thought process, a game. Other times, like my original experience with the Crispr data that I have, is I had really cool data. Finding the right question and a good framing has been a challenge. Getting all of that together is a very, very difficult process. And it takes a lot of trial and error. It takes a willingness to fail and get up the next morning and continue to do it. And I was surprised by sort of the mental fortitude that it actually took to try to make it through this process.